Hey, babies and babies and babies and babies and babies and babies. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. What's up? What's up? I want to thank our flight crew last night. Callow, I was home before 9 o'clock last night.
Wow.
Before 9 o'clock, I got off the plane. I couldn't believe it. So we were Lightning McQueen getting out of that joint because these days the Commanders are dodging bullets around here. This is now, let's see. They've won on a Hail Mary. They'd never done that before. And then yesterday, while the right team won, that was very close to going the wrong way. Very, very, very close to going the wrong way yesterday.
Yeah, who would have thought Spencer Rattler was going to be the difference maker in the second half of this one? Yeah, that was a little too close for comfort. A lot too close for comfort.
And the refs too, they sucked. You know, I like that. The team doesn't want me to say, but they sucked yesterday. One of the two roughing the passer calls on Dante Fowler was absurd. The hold, unfortunately, at the end, the game was over if the De'Ami Brown catch from Jayden Daniels, stands. It doesn't. That wasn't great. They twice effed up the clock. Twice. One of them they ended up getting right, where the kick that Greg Joseph missed, but the clock had run out, and they for some reason let the play go. I still don't know why the Commanders snapped it, because they were clearly unaware that the clock had ran out as well, but they did. Anyway, at least they ended up getting that right and doing the second chance. The end of the is utterly ridiculous. There is no excuse for it. I'm trying to figure out. I have a feeling that it wasn't going to run the clock out entirely, that it would have been close, but I'm not sure. And whatever this referee was thinking, signaling to stop the clock on this play, and then the clock operator, unfortunately, following suit and allowing it to be a thing. The referees are so lucky New Orleans didn't win yesterday, because they would be getting roasted for giving them what ended up being an extra play at the end of the game. So the referees today, I know the team doesn't like when we go after them, but I'm here on my show. That was horrible. Yes. I mean, really across the board, a terrible performance by the referees yesterday.
I'm with you. I usually don't bitch about the referees because I think calls a lot of times go both ways. There were a few that went both ways yesterday, but that last set of downs it was 3 seconds. There would have been about a second or maybe two at the end of the day when it came to that last play. And what I actually hated was I forget who was the pool reporter yesterday, because you get one reporter that gets to ask the refs, and the answer was it's not reviewable. I don't know what else to say to you. Well, I'm on the phone today, if I'm Josh Harris, to Roger Goodell going, I think you should probably make some of these clock situations reviewable, because you almost cost my team a win, which would cost us a playoff position. So this is the other thing that I get mad about, is how is this not reviewable either?
Okay. All right. Well, then let me ask this question, because at the end of the third quarter, when the Commanders didn't get a snap off for a field goal and kicked it anyway and missed, they signaled no good, and we're going to give the Saints the ball. Dan Quinn had to run on the field and go look at the clock, and then replay assist runs in and goes, oh, by the way, that play is now void because the game clock ended. So it can be reviewed. Guys, actually, to say that, it happened earlier in the same game where they reviewed a clock issue. I don't know if there would have been 3 seconds or 1 second or no seconds. That's the part it would have been high drama on TV to show it and try to figure out and try to quickly put a clock up there and go, how much time actually should have run off before they spiked the ball. But the idea that they couldn't go back and look at it, I don't understand that. They had already done that earlier in the game. And I don't want to get too far off track on the referees, because the right team won. Had it gone a different direction, this would have been a ramification in the entire NFC in the playoff picture. Had they allowed a play that shouldn't have happened, or maybe shouldn't have happened. I'm not even saying definitively it shouldn't have happened. I do know what I saw. I nearly had a heart attack yesterday, because they do this. I see the clock. I know it's not running. And then all of a sudden they run up and they spike it. And now you're having this, oh my God. And then listen, I give the Saints credit on their home field to go for 2 for the win. You know what? You guys got balls. Like that was, I loved it. You guys have nothing to lose. You have to win. Forget going to overtime. You think you're going to stay? Like, I saw a quote from Darren Rizzi. He's like, his quote was something to the effect of, if you told me we're going to hold that guy to 20 points, I would have told you we're going to win. So the respect for Daniels, like, keep this in mind. Like, this was no cakewalk because of their defense. I've talked about this on Friday. Their defense over this 3-1 winning streak, we're averaging giving up 15 points a game, like top 5 NFL in that stretch. They'd played the Giants the week before, but the other opponents were good. Like, they had really played well defensively. We're at the point now where we have opposing coaches going, if we could just hold that guy to 20, I like our chances against him.
Yeah, no, and here's the thing too with with the way that their defensive effort was. I don't think we've seen Daniels on tilt as much as he was yesterday as well. Like, respect to the Saints on their defense there. I haven't seen Jayden this, like, kind of, I don't want to use the word rattled, but he clearly wasn't himself. Like, he was not running the offense the way that they wanted him to.
They fooled him.
Yes, they were exactly.
Fooling him, especially early. Like, he was indecisive with the ball. Those sacks were not on the offensive line, most of them. He was being fooled by it. But again, like, I'll go back to, if these are his bad games, you know, like, the reality is he had 3 near misses on McLaurin that could have been 5 touchdown passes to him. The really rough one was the one on the sideline where he was literally wide open. The one down the seam where he just missed, it was off by like a yard. That happens. That had to be a perfect pass for it to work out. The other one was a PI. Like, all the things you're saying about the refs, that was ridiculous that they didn't call a PI on that underthrow. But the miss was the one on the sideline where they busted a coverage and he was wide open and he overthrew him. That's the one miss. But outside of that, like, again, like, how many times did he save this team's butt with the 4th and 1 leaping over people? There was an earlier 3rd down, like, short play where he had to, like, get out of a sack of a defensive end and beat Demario Davis to the edge and reach out and get a first down. His numbers passing, 25 of 31, 226, 2 touchdowns, and yet, like, no turnovers again. Like, once again, even rattled and confused, clearly confused by what they were doing out there. No turnovers again. He, again, rarely, if ever, puts the ball in harm's way. Rarely, if ever, does it. So, again, I'll just reiterate, if these are his quote unquote bad games, what do we have over here? Like, we got top 5 quarterback in the league, if that's what it is.
No, once again, is number 5 stepping out on the field. The flow chart goes, yes, you have a chance to win the game. And granted, this is one where they should have had a little bit more than just a chance to win the game, but a game that did not go their way in a lot of different ways. And there they were sitting with the lead the entire time. They never gave that up. So there was not a point where they were trailing in this game. So once again, when he's on the field, they can go toe to toe with anybody. I mean, that seemingly is what it is. And once again, to your point too, this is his bad games or his disappointing games. I look at that stat line and go, I'm fine with that. Like, I can live with that every single time.
Yeah, it's the 8 sacks that I think throws everybody. Like, again, no interceptions. There was never a ball that was even close to being intercepted. He always puts the ball in the right spot. But this was one, especially early, whatever their look was threw him a little bit. Even on the touchdown to McLaurin, that was him just buying time and doing a magic act. Like, that play wasn't supposed to be that way. Dan Quinn acknowledged it afterwards. He was like, sometimes you got to get rid of the ball. We were saying it in the booth yesterday. Like, these are on him. Like, he's not letting it rip. Like, I don't know what he's not liking that he's not seeing, but this is the one thing, like, moving down as the season goes along. The Saints did something yesterday that got to him to the point where they made him indecisive. The good news is his indecisive isn't Jake Hayner's indecisive. His indecisive is still potentially a 25-yard play with his legs or a crazy touchdown pass or just get out of Dodge and survive to see the next day, which was good. We had a really funny moment with him after the game in the locker room. He does the post-game interview with us. And I'm like, I just said to him, I go, it must have been a big day for you to be back in Louisiana, and I thought it was I know that the NFL schedule makers didn't do this on purpose, but being there on the weekend of the Heisman Trophy being handed out again was very, was very coincidentally cool. Anyway, and I met Dylan Cruz yesterday. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But anyway, so afterwards I said, this, it must have been a big day for you to be here. And he said, yeah. And he's like, started talking about how, being back there and everything. And I go, well, he goes, actually my first game was in the Superdome. So this brings back a lot of memories as the LSU quarterback. And I go, did you win 20-19? And he goes, no, we lost by 1 point. So it was like really like a cool moment of it. He's like, you know what? Maybe karmically they owed me one. First game here as the LSU quarterback. And we won by 1 here in a game that when you look at time of possession, won the turnover battle. They had the ball for over 40 minutes again. The fact that this game was close is really almost nuts to me. If you look at his stat, take away sacks for a moment. Look at his stat line, how many yards he rushed for, what his passing average was. Look at the time of possession. Look at the turnover battle. You would never, ever, ever look at that on paper and go, that came down to a 2-point conversion, winner take all end of the game. Never would have thought it.
No, not at all. But at the same time, too, what has been kind of the weak point of the season, it has been the defense. I know they've been better as of late, but we know the side of the ball that, is dicey, to say the least, is the defense. And once again, it's kind of like, hold on to your butts for the last drive of the game, because that's exactly what happened again. And again, too, Kamara was out and they were still running the ball like crazy at the end of that game, too. And that's where I just keep looking at it and going, this is the weakness. We have to live and die by it at this point. You have to survive it, and you have to hope that your complementary football helps it a little bit.
So, like the other one, too, is, and this has been going on now for weeks now, 19 second half points again. They shut them out in the first. I mean, granted, it was a different quarterback, and I'll get to him in a minute because he ain't ready for prime time. But whatever. This was the reason why I was so confident on Friday. I didn't know a lot about him, but I'm sitting there going, we got a gift. We did. They should have started Rattler. That's clearly obvious that he should have been the starter. But so we got a gift. That's why I felt so confident going into it. I'm like, this is going to be, I'm hard pressed to see them. As good as I thought their defense was playing. And I thought the game would be close-ish. And then what I thought would happen was if they got up to a 2-score lead, it would go the wrong way for New Orleans the second half. I'll give them a lot of credit. They made the quarterback change. Obviously, their season was on the line. They had to win. So they made the quarterback change. Their defense really hung in there, played really hard. I thought Chase Young played pretty well. I saw Chase's dad down in the tunnels after the game. So it was really cool to catch up with him. I thought he had a nice game. Like I said on Friday, watching him on film, he actually looks closer to that rookie of the year player than he did the last couple of years in Washington, where he had all the injuries and all the other, criticisms of him. But it was nice to see. He actually played really well for them. But this was one of those, again, I saw this number. Washington was plus 77 in the first half of games this year. They're top 5 point differential. They'll only add one more point to that, obviously, yesterday. But in the second half, they're it knocks down to they're plus 80 overall. So in the first half, they're plus 77. In the second half, they're plus 3 for the entire season. And lately, the last 4 to 6 weeks, they've given up a ton of points, starting with the Hail Mary game. They shut out the Bears in the first half of that game. They were blowing out, who was it recently? They were blowing out somebody, and the game got close. This one happened again. So finishing, as they like to talk about, it has not been happening. This game, statistically, should never have even been close. Even with the sacks, even with the penalties, should never have been close. And because of, I think, some unwarranted penalties, some that were deserved, because of a couple missed opportunities, and because of a defense that they can't go 60 minutes of lockdown like that. Here we are with everything is dicey, and we got to dodge bullets.
I think the other part of this that we haven't mentioned yet, though, is once again, Kingsbury was a little bit weird on his play calling. Specifically, there were a couple ones where he was trying to go play action on obvious passing downs, and the Saints were jumping right into both Jayden and whoever the running back were. That happened multiple times, in the second half. Kingsbury's like, I know he doesn't want to answer the question about the second half of the seasons with his offenses or whatever, but this was another kind of questionable type of play calling game for me, at least in the simple moments. Like, don't get me wrong, those bombs to McLaurin, every single one of them should have worked out. Like, whether it would have been a pass interference or, barely just missed him, I'll give him credit there. Like, he went back to it 2 more times after it missed, and it should have hit all 3 times.
They go 1 of 3. This game's never close.
Exactly. So,
and the only one that I'm really, the referees, considering how they dinged us for some ones I thought were unwarranted, the fact that they didn't call that PI when it was obviously a PI was bad. The other 2 were just misses, but the one that really stings is that one on the sideline where it was a busted coverage and he was wide open and he didn't have to overthrow him. Like, he had to throw a perfect pass on that one. It just missed. The one on the sideline, he was so wide open that he could have slowed him down just to make sure he makes the catch. And he might have scored anyway.
Yeah. And so, but just back up to Kingsbury, I just thought once again, he's like, I don't know. It just seems like he needs to simplify things just a little bit more. The other thing too, was they lined up in that 3 tight end set, I think in the first quarter or the second quarter. And even the TV broadcast mentioned it right away, which tells you that like Kenny and John Vilma probably got a little bit of a heads up. And then I didn't see it too much afterwards there either. So I don't know. I just thought the offense, Jayden got them out of it and they missed a few plays. I just thought there was a little bit more that Kingsbury could have done to simplify things.
I'll tell you, since I have, I don't typically talk a lot about what my, preparation meetings are with the coaching staff, but I will tell you, I was not told a lot about 13 personnel. I was told a lot about 12. They said I was told going into this game that you would see a lot of 12 personnel off of the Noah Brown injury. I want to give the Saints credit on this one too. This is just, I actually thought defensively they played pretty well. They loaded up on the run.
Yep.
They're a terrible run defense. Like, they give up 5 yards of carry coming in. That's worse than the NFL. I think a lot of that, I think I talked about this with you on Friday. I think a lot of that is they're very good at active front, but I don't see their secondary being all that physical. And if you can get a nice hole, they give up a lot of yards either after contact or beyond in long runs, because I don't think their secondary really wants to be overly physical. And that honestly is typically the difference in a run game, is if you don't have the safeties and the corners who want to get up on the run and get into the gaps when they have to, then you're going to have a problem, because you can't rely on that front. The linebackers are fast, good. Demario Davis is like London. Like, he could be in the Hall of Fame, with the career that he's had. And Pete Werner's very good, fast, active. Their front with Chase Young and Granderson, those guys are fast. Like, there's a lot of speed up there, but if you get the crease, you get the hole. What I wasn't seeing on film was their secondary really wanting to make those plays, which is what I attributed to why their rush defense wasn't that good. They just put so many people in the box. They loaded up on the run. So I would give them a lot of credit. I thought defensively, they came in with a great game plan. I think they limited Washington as much as they could. They confused Jayden. They took away the one thing, like B-Rob's numbers, 21 for 65. They're going to take that all day. Like, this was like, let's not overthink this, guys. They can't really stop the run. We don't know where our passing production is going to come from now outside of Terry because of the Noah Brown injury. We run the ball as good as anybody in the NFL, short of the Eagles or the Ravens. Why don't we just not overthink this whole thing? And the Saints said not so fast and kind of forced a lot of, I think, changes for Washington. So I want to give them some credit here for whatever their game plan was, because early they stopped the run, and they had Jayden overthinking a lot of plays. So I'll give him a lot of credit.
No, on top of that, too, you're not wrong, though, either. Like, B-Rob got a few of those into the secondary, and they didn't really want to mess with them once he got there. But they did a really good job of making sure he wasn't going to get there as well. So once that happened, too, like, I kind of knew they were going to need a little bit more. The other thing that was happening, too, was Jayden actually had a little bit more running room than he thought, but that the defensive front was confusing him enough that he wasn't just taking off. Like, there were a few times where had he not hesitated and just taken the lane, he would have ripped off a 10, 20-yard run. And instead he sat back there. And when he sat back there, he was gobbled up right away. Like, I mean, it was actually like the most I've seen a team contain him in the entire season.
I do have to mention your boy Haener. Haener. Oh, man. Whoo. He ate it. Like, that was not a good starting debut. He ate it. Like, the ones that really got me were when he was under pressure, he fell down like 3 times.
Will Levis-esque.
It was pretty bad. So they did the right thing. They made the switch, and then Rattler came in and kind of proved, I'm the guy who should be the backup here. I'm the guy who was the big recruit. I'm the guy who had a really good, college, moved around, but good college career. And I'm guessing he's going to be starting next week for them. I thought he made a couple of really nice throws. The one over the middle of the field to MVS where he got hit when he threw it. And for some reason, Jeremy Chin and Quan Martin both thought they were getting an interception on that play and didn't. Unfortunately, if Chin had just kind of, well, who knows? You can't win anymore. If he just totally crushed MVS, probably would have been a flag. And then he didn't make the interception. Like, you can't win if you're these defenders anymore. But that was a nice throw. The Wilson call to Kamara was a really great call at the time when they did it. I will say this about that. I'm still not entirely sure that he got both feet in, because he made a great one-handed catch and the first foot was down when he did it, but he exchanged the ball to the other hand. I don't exactly know what the rule is, because while he was doing that exchange, one foot went in, the other one went out. And so I got to do a little rules nerd stuff to figure out. I wasn't entirely sure that it was clear that he got both feet in on that play, albeit it was a great call, great throw, and a terrific catch by Kamara.
To me on that one, it was one of those ones where had they called it not a touchdown, like not enough to overturn it either way. That's what I felt in the moment. So once they called it a touchdown, I thought, okay, there's no way. On Rattler, by the way, I knew right away, like in that first drive, he barely missed MVS and he barely missed another pass. And I was like, like this guy, he's already way better than Hayner was in the first half. Like he was professionally running. It was one of those drives where we're going, I think they went 3 and out, but even I was like, like this guy's already doing way more than Hayner did in the first half. This is actually going to be a little bit of a problem. And he was like solid enough. He was.
I want to give out, I'm going to shout out Logan Paulson. He's going to hate this because I'm paranoid, but not like him, actually. Like he was showing me pregame tape of this Hayner guy and he's like, see, this isn't so bad. Watch this. He's got some zip on his ball, the whole thing. And I looked at him and I pulled up those pictures that were like, viral of him, like the, whatever that pose he was doing. And I go, Logan, we're not losing to this guy. I'm like, I don't need to watch the Fresno State film to know that in December, him making his first start on a under 500 team, it just ain't going to happen for him. And so for Logan, though, I'm like, that's the makeup of somebody who watches this film and needs to pay to be paranoid, because I could sit there and go, you know what? I got a pretty good feeling about today with this guy at quarterback. And Logan's like showing me play after play after play. Look at this one. Look at this one. And I go, you're not going to scare me, man. Like you're not going to do it today. Like I was more paranoid than I needed to be before the Tennessee game off of the Dallas game. But this one, I was convinced they were going down there to win when I heard this guy was starting.
I think you need to give me a little bit of credit on my show when you came on Friday. I said I had landed on Friday that these matchups are always weird with these two teams.
They are weird.
And like, I just said to you, I think there's some weird voodoo, like pun intended, with these teams because they're NFC opponents and they always play each other. Things just get weird. Like they beat each other when one's having a good season and the other's having a bad season. And last night I couldn't help but feel in the fourth quarter, like, oh God, like this is happening. Like what I called on Friday is happening. Luckily it didn't actually go all the way through, but it was still very weird. They should have won by a little bit more and they didn't.
Last thing real quick, or this will be more important next week. And I thought it would be. Marshawn Lattimore made his debut. They did not target him once. So they didn't even throw the ball his way.
Yep.
And the odd man out, at least for a week, was Benjamin St. Juste, who did play a little bit. But Mike Sammers still stayed on the outside, which I actually think is the right thing to do. Noah Igbenogany's been good in the slot. Why switch up literally everything to bring in one person? So I'm not surprised that this is how it stayed. And I'm going to assume that Lattimore will get his chances. And you know me, I don't pre-plan what I want to say on the broadcast, but I had Houdat in the holster for any Marshawn play that he made. I was waiting for the moment. I was hoping to be a pick and at some point, like make a play because it was his debut. I had Houdat sitting in the holster the whole time. And I'm like, they're not even throwing the ball at this guy. I was even mad at one point on the air. I'm like, why would they throw the ball at this guy? Well, it was selfishly I wanted to say something.
I mean, they traded all those picks for him. Clearly worth it. If even the team,
I guess they know how good he is. They must know how good he is if they're not throwing the ball his way.
Right, exactly. I'm guessing that was part of the prep of wherever that guy's lining, don't throw there because you guys can't make the throw towards that guy. That's where I ultimately landed for that one.
No. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll talk about the playoff picture next. Pretty much the show is at 6:30 Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. This was a win-win last night. Seattle or Green Bay losing was going to help Washington either way, but I kind of landed on, I kind of wanted Green Bay to beat Seattle so that the nightmare scenario doesn't begin, which is the Rams play the Jets in Arizona the next couple of weeks. They're hot right now. Then they play Seattle week 18. If Seattle were to win their next 3 games, Seattle would be at 11, the Rams would be at 10, and if the Rams beat Seattle, they'd win the division, and then Seattle would have 11, and oops, 10-7 isn't good enough anymore, right? That was the nightmare scenario. So I buy Green Bay. In fact, I think I said in the summer, I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the Super Bowl. And so to me, this is better because it essentially allows us to go 1-2 down the stretch and still make the playoffs. I hope 2-1 or better is what ends up happening, and we don't even have to have this conversation. But like now, 1 win essentially eliminates the loser of the NFC West for our purposes, because neither one of them will have a better conference record than us. So that's the good news I think that happened yesterday.
No, 100%. This is what I had been kind of rooting for the whole time, was that the West keeps beating each other up enough that only one of them is going to make it. And here we are. We're staring that in the face right now, that the only one that's going to make it through is the division winner, most likely. The other part of all this, too, is I went through, who actually has like the best playoff predictor that I've seen out of any of the entities is The Athletic. The Athletic has one that's amazing that you can click through and say, how do I get to the 6th seed? And it'll tell you what the matchups are or whatever. But I've been clicking around on that, and the road to the 6th seed was always going to be Green Bay losing, essentially. That's not going to happen. And it would be the Vikings losing to the Bears. That's not going to happen either. So I had landed on 7th seed is how they're going to get into this thing. It's just there's too much that needs to happen. So off of last night, though, getting rid of a little bit of the noise in the West is going to help them regardless. Also, I told you this. I don't want, out of all the NFC West teams, if they were to somehow play one of them, I didn't want to go to Seattle anyways. Get them out of the playoff picture. I don't need to go to that place, during a playoff game. So knock them out, please.
I don't know about that. Sam Howell. Yikes. Oh, yikes. You know me, I love him. I like our guys. I never want to throw stones at them. And I liked Sam. I thought that he took a beating last year, the type of beating that is completely, literally undeserved for anybody who plays in the NFL. But he got thrust into action last night because Geno Smith got hurt. We're going to have to find out, how bad is Geno Smith's injury. I don't really know. So it was a knee injury, so we don't know how bad it is. But he went out there and, oh my God, he was terrible. I mean, he threw a late interception that sealed it. He could have thrown 3 more. And it was I was having PTSD watching him stand there and get hit and sacked constantly. That was rough to watch last night.
Is Ron going to come out today and say he was such a good coach because he looked so much better last year? Is that going to happen?
Ron wants his ring, remember?
No,
I have to mention this on the air. Amy Trask, whose opinion I really, value. She's been on CBS for a long time. She was with the Raiders, high up in the Raiders organization for a very, very long time. Tweeted out over the weekend that teams who are looking for a head coach should look at Ron Rivera, and basically said that the stuff that had happened, weren't totally his fault, insinuating the dysfunction of the organization was really at issue. And she's not totally wrong, but really? Look at the roster we have now. It's an indictment of the roster that he put together. They carried over not a significant portion of the roster that he built. One by one, we're letting his first round picks go now. There's not many players that have kind of made it to the other side with this group. And Sam Howell, yikes. Carson Wentz, yikes. Those are not all Dan Snyder decisions, guys. Not that I want to sit there and again, I'm not trying to limit him from getting jobs. Get a job. Like Jets, you want to hire him? Go for it. Go for it. And I'll go back to Ellie's like, he's in the Brad category a little bit. I like Ron. Everybody likes Ron. Like, nice guy, great man, But if you're sitting here trying to paint a picture that he had nothing to do with the lack of success, that it was just the environment he was in, come on now. Like who's buying that? Come on now.
Like, this goes back to where, yes, you're allowed to complain about the old ownership when Snyder owned the team, but like you and I would have this discussion. Dan Snyder being the owner doesn't make it so you don't throw the ball past the sticks on 3rd and 9. Or
Dan Snyder did not make you trade for Carson Wentz.
Correct.
Stop telling people he did. He did not.
And to the same point, Dan Snyder did not want to draft Jamin Davis. Okay. I know if there's anything I know Dan didn't want to do, he didn't want to draft a linebacker in the first round. Like, if there's anything I can be pretty safe on, it's that. He didn't want to make you go into the draft saying, I'm going to pick Emmanuel Forbes no matter what the draft board looks like. He's the one that also didn't make all these other draft picks where, and I always like to preface this. I love Sam Cosmi. I think he's one of the best players on this team, leadership-wise, whatever. They drafted him to be a tackle originally. He's a guard now. Yeah. They're like,
you know what though? Like, that may, in my humble opinion, may happen with Brandon Coleman too. Like, okay. I actually wouldn't be shocked if in the end he ends up becoming the left guard. I think he'd be phenomenal at it. I think next year, this is all next year, he could be the left tackle. He could be the left guard. He could be the right tackle. Like, I think any of those things are possible actually for him. What
I'm getting at, though, is the way Ron drafted. Okay, Dan didn't make you draft a certain way, and all these picks skew the other way. Like I think you and I have always been in agreement. The personnel-wise of Ron is what was the main downfall of Ron.
Yes.
Like that. Like, I'm sorry. The pressure from ownership or the whole situation of the franchise did not make you screw up drafts left and right. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it is all I'm saying.
Let's see. East is off the table now. Brotherly love, guys. We love each other. You all need to shut up. So I'll go back to what I said last week. Like, I hear all the soap opera stuff. It sounds very fragile. They have not lost since early October. So until they start losing, there is no real problem there. And I don't know. They smoked Pittsburgh yesterday. And don't tell me that's because one receiver didn't play. So you know what? Like, I'm done hearing it. Like, they're going to lose a game. Hopefully it's a Sunday. They're overdue to lose to somebody. I mean, nobody runs the table like they're doing. But there's no real issue there, obviously. Like, the real issue teams lose. They don't lose. So maybe they're chirping at each other and they're divas and they can't stand each other's faces or whatever it is. And like, there's a lot of reasons not to like a lot of those personalities up there. And the Philadelphia fan base are skittish cats now, that they're just waiting for disaster to happen. They're fragile, but their team isn't losing. And if they spend the week complaining about a 12-2 team again, that now could get the 1 seed, I don't know what you're complaining about.
Okay, but here is one thing though that I think needs to be acknowledged. Like, AJ Brown came out and said, "Oh, it's all love" after the game, and then Jalen Hurts sits down at the press conference and goes, "Oh, that's what y'all wanted to see, right?" I'm sorry, you guys. We all started talking about it because AJ Brown was the one after the game last week saying, "I need the ball more." Like, I cannot stand the modern athlete that bitches and complains about what the media said when they started it. Yes, Brandon Graham said some stuff during the week. Don't get me wrong. Like, he stoked the fire, threw some gas on the fire. But it all started with AJ Brown bitching after the game about it. So, like, stop doing this thing of, well, this is what you guys wanted to see. No, it's what you guys started last week. Let's stop blaming everyone else for what you said last week.
Right. Mark it down. Hot take on Jamarcus Russell's podcast on Thursday. Somebody's going to say something ridiculous about what's really going on there. That's the dumbest thing about it. Like, the weirdest part of the Brandon Graham was it happened on WIP, which is a legacy sports radio station. They don't do that anymore. They do it on their own podcast and then complain it's not the media. like everyone can hear you. Are you confused about what these things are? It's the same.
The confusing thing too was did you get I know you were like getting ready for the game. The details of the reporting after or before the game were so funny. Like, it was like, it was like Rossini or one of the other main, beat reporter types that was like, Brandon Graham got up in front of the team and apologized to Brown and Hurts to say that he didn't mean to do anything. And then it was like, and then Hurts and Brown got up in front of the team and dapped each other up. I'm like, why do we need this type of detail?
God.
Like, why do we need this type of reporting in the NFL? And it was like to show that they're friendly enough at this point. And I'm like, what are we doing here? This is soft. And then, this is so soft.
And then Sirianni farted on purpose and everyone laughed. Vic Fangio's looking around the room going, what is up with this? Like, we're 12-2, man. Come on, guys. Anyway, they're fine. It'll be a great game this weekend. I can't wait. Lions lose, not surprised. It was a tough game that they had. Allen was awesome. I think he's front runner for the MVP now. And now the top seed's a crapshoot. Obviously, tonight's a big deal. Minnesota wins. They're playing Chicago. They're now tied. Philadelphia's, now tied, assuming Minnesota wins, could be three-way tie. Lions and Vikings play each other week 18. Very well could be winner gets the top seed, loser gets a wild card. Like, the NFL couldn't ask for anything better. I always complain about these week 18 games. We have another one this year. That Dallas-Washington game is going to mean nothing. Like, it really seriously is going to mean nothing. It's going to be other shoe on the other foot. Washington's hopefully going to have qualified for the playoffs and have no room to move up, and Dallas will have nothing to play for. So, we've had this last few years where it's the other shoes on the other foot, where Washington has nothing to play for. That's why I hate these games, but they may get a massive earth-shattering week 18 game with Minnesota and Detroit this year. One seed is very much wide open. Lions as a wild card as opposed to the home team in the playoffs, a very, very, very different thing, especially when crazy Dan Campbell's going to do crazy Dan Campbell things on the road. So the Lions fans, they're the ones should be freaking out because they need the home field advantage. They really do.
Yeah, I was going to say, in terms of squirrely fan bases, I think Detroit's going to take the cake here because they have a head coach that does things that make you go absolutely insane. And granted, it's for good and bad, right? Like, there's a reason why they're this good. It's because of Campbell. But the fact that you have to deal with his kind of chaotic decision making, I couldn't survive it. Like, I couldn't survive it if I was
on the road.
Yeah, I couldn't survive it if I'm that fan base.
No. Let's see. Tampa Bay and Arizona end up winning. So those were not great results for us because, we were, kind of hoping to knock people out, but we're not able to do it. I'm not so scared about the Cardinals. We have the tie break with them. Tampa Bay, though, obviously the path is we want them to win that division because if they win that division, then all bets are off for whatever their final record is. The bad scenario is if we end up tied with them for the wild card, we're going to lose out to them. So that's no good. Let's see. Mahomes hurt in the Chiefs win. Now, the good news for them is this, because every other team in there has at least 3 losses. They could rest them for at least a week and see what happens. Because if they somehow win next week, they could rest them again. So there's no rush, actually, as in previous years, to bring them back. They're in the 1 seed currently. So I think, unless it's not that bad, I actually think he's not going to play next week. They're going to give him the week off. If the Chiefs somehow win anyway, all the better. They can rest him longer. And if they don't, they'll have to make a decision as to whether they're going to bring him back before the playoffs because they need to get to the bye. So I don't think he's playing next week. That's what I don't think.
No, I agree with you there. And honestly, though, the Chiefs are one of those teams, and he's one of those players. Talk to me when he's not going to be in for the playoffs. Like, they were the road team all last year, too. Like, or for most of last year,
he plays with everything. He'll play. Like, he plays everything, but he doesn't need to. Like, they're in a good spot here because Buffalo's got 3 losses. So they got a little bit of margin for error. They don't have to play him next week.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Not a surprise here. Ravens smashed Dabs and Cutlets. That was chalk. I mean, those guys are done, and the Ravens clearly needed to win. That division's back on the line now, thanks to the Pittsburgh loss. That's a big game this weekend, Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Let's see. Cowboys showed up. They don't like being underdogs in Carolina, won handily there, and that's impressive enough because Carolina's been playing really well the last few weeks. Maybe they ran out a little bit of steam, but I'll give the Cowboys credit. They're missing all sorts of people. Trayvon Diggs, latest. I did see some reporting I'll probably talk about tomorrow on Micah Parsons and Jerry already starting the wrong conversations about him moving forward. Like, this is history repeating. They don't know how to handle their stars these days contractually. They know how to handle them internally. They don't know how to handle them contractually. My favorite thing that's going to be coming soon, I can't wait for the next Irsay presser. And I wish he had one yesterday because the Colts were the dumbest team in the league yesterday by far. and not even close. They blew a touchdown because Jonathan Taylor dropped the ball before he crossed the goal line, and then they threw one of the worst pick sixes I've ever seen in my life, which was a double pass. And unlike the Saints one where the receiver threw it forward, the receiver was supposed to throw it backwards again, or at least across the line of scrimmage back to Anthony Richardson. And it is something straight out of like MAC football. It was so bad. And so their season's over. And that is a way to crash a season, to lose that way.
Yeah, especially because I don't love the Colts, don't get me wrong, but I've actually liked their fight down the stretch here. Like, they've kept themselves in arm reach of the Texans like this whole second half of the year. And then they went and did that, and I was like, all right, well, that's your season over with. Like, when you have a play like that and you're barely holding on, that's it. Like, that's the end of it. My least favorite part about that game, though, was whoever was on color commentary was like, oh, I don't really blame them. Like, they needed to get something going there. And I'm like, stop. Like, there's no defending that play happening. Like, throw the ball in the dirt or just go down. Like, that's the part with trick plays that we see it all the time. Go down. Don't force it. They forced it. It goes 7 points the other way.
No, it's terrible. Let's see. Texans, that was a good show me win for them. Shut down Tua, shut down the Wonderkind. Miami's probably not making the playoffs now. Texans have already won their division, so they're good to go. And this was one of those, I want to see which one of these two teams is real. And Miami putting up 12 points. Well, I guess you're not.
With Tua, 4 turnovers.
Yeah.
That's the second time he's done that this year. Those guys shouldn't be making the money that he's making with those types of days. The Dolphins, I'm going to be really interested what their offseason looks like. They got to ask some big questions for their quarterback and their head coach. So, yeah.
And the last ones were Burrow got a win over Tennessee. Not a surprise there. And then Rodgers gets to go on McAfee this week and explain how great he is again. Because not only did he have a near 200-yard day with Devontae Adams, he was their leading rusher yesterday too. And they beat the Jaguars. And my son thought this was hilarious and showed me this morning. Do you know what the Rizzler is?
Yes, I do.
Mac Jones apparently did the Rizzler celebration in the middle of the game, which, you know, people my age wouldn't know if you don't have a 12-year-old son who shows it to you all the time. But Mac Jones is doing the Rizzler, which... And if you've seen the Rizzler, you're like, yep, that's Mac Jones. That sounds about right, actually.
There are things that I think you and I talk about, like when you look at someone in a uniform and like the universe is aligned, seeing Mac Jones in a throwback Jaguars jersey, a perfect visual. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it was like, oh, this looks great. He looks like he belongs in that throwback jersey.
You know, I think that family that did the Rizzler videos are from Florida. So they should invite Mac Jones to do their next Walmart video, and he could dance and scream, "I bring the boom."
I don't know if they're from Florida. I just know they're sellouts. They're at like every NFL game. Like, they were at a Giants game.
Sell out if you got that popular over something as stupid as that.
No, because I'm just saying, last week they were at the Dolphins game. And then the next night they were at the Cowboys game. So I'm just saying, like, they don't care whose money they're taking in the NFL.
They bring the boom. All right, we'll be right back. Bram wants to show you ESPN 630 Sports Capital. All right, just a few minutes left here. The Caps are hot for the holidays. Can't beat them. This is going to be an interesting week, though. They're playing like 5 times in 7 days or something like that. They got some crazy schedule here this week. The pre-Christmas, they had their little mini bye, and it's all getting caught up to this week. So I would expect them not to stay red hot because it's just too many games in a short period of time.
Yeah, so tonight's going to start the first of back-to-backs. They get Dallas. They go to Dallas and then to Chicago. Chicago's not a good team, but it's the second half of a back-to-back. Dallas is a good team, though, so let's see how they stack up. Honestly, though, like, they're zombie Caps these days. You can't keep them down, even if they're down in the third period. The scoring's coming from everywhere. The goaltending has been pretty good from both goaltenders here. Spencer Carberry should be firmly in Coach of the Year status right now, and the fact that they are back to where they need to be as a franchise, and I don't know, like, we haven't had a lot of time here. Have you seen what's happened with the Rangers? Like, the Rangers had to trade their captain. They've fallen apart. They've lost like 11 of 12 games. I think something that needs to just be respected here at the Capitals is how they have just not fallen apart like some of these other teams have, like the Rangers and some other teams that happen in the NHL. They continue to win. And then, oh, by the way, Alex Ovechkin is practicing again. He just doesn't have he has a non-contact jersey on. He's close. Like, I would guarantee he's going to come back after that holiday break, if not a little bit sooner, if he's ready to go. But I would say after Christmas, that 4-day break, I think Ovechkin's going to be back here too. So that 6 week being out for 6 weeks, he's probably going to be out for like 4, maybe 5.
If he told you I have 2 fibulas in each leg, you'd probably believe him.
Right. Yes.
And that losing one isn't that big of a deal.
Right.
So
exactly.
Anyway, all right. So we'll see what happens tonight with them. All right. Last thing, relevant Monday Night Football, especially for us. Vikings beat the Bears. It's a 3-way tie for the 1 seed with the Vikings and the Lions set to face each other week 18. So that could be showdown, winner take all, bye, and the loser gets wild card. Like, that's wild that could actually happen. Philadelphia's going to have a lot to say about that too, because if Philadelphia wins here this weekend, they get Dallas and the Giants at home with their final 2 games. So they could win out if they win here this weekend. So Washington's going to have a lot of say in who gets the bye. They're going to have a lot of say in that probably this weekend. And then obviously Atlanta losing is good because we want to eliminate them from the conversation. But I got to be honest, like, there's a part of me that goes, I kind of want them to win, because I don't want them to turn to Penix when we play him in a couple of weeks, because that'll be an I don't know what I don't know situation with him. And that game may be necessary for Washington to ensure a playoff berth. So I don't know. I guess it's a win-win tonight. If Atlanta loses, well, that kind of just eliminates them from the conversation. If they win, well, then it might hold off the whole let's put Penix in late in the season.
No, this all boils down to, like, it's really all going to boil down to take care of what's in front of you for Washington, because we're getting these win-win scenarios because they're in too many of them is essentially what's happening here. I'm with you though. I would rather have Atlanta just win this one, give Kirk a little bit more runway, and hopefully we don't see Penix, because I do not want to deal with a quarterback in his first start.
No, I don't either. All right, y'all. See y'all tomorrow. Brave Buster Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.